Hello everyone, this is Usama Naga. I'm very happy to introduce last-minute pediatric board question bank. Our comprehensive last-minute question bank covers all pediatric subspecialties, includes more than 2,000 board-style questions and answers, designed to reinforce high-yield concepts for the pediatric board exam. In this presentation, we'll review sample questions and answers from a variety of pediatric subspecialties to demonstrate the style and depth of the question bank. Great news, the complete question bank is included as part of the 6-month live pediatric board review course starting in 3 weeks, April 5th on Sunday morning, providing participants with a powerful tool to strengthen their knowledge and prepare effectively for the exam. These carefully selected questions are designed to help you review key concepts, identify weak areas, and approach the pediatric board exam with confidence. We'll start with the first question. A 2-year-old toddler is brought to the emergency department because of intermittent episodes of vomiting and diarrhea over the past day. Between episodes, the child appears tired and wants to sleep, then briefly returns closer to baseline. There is no history of trauma or ingestion. Physical examination reveals lethargy and a dry mouth, but the neurological examination is normal. Laboratory studies are within normal limits. What is the next best diagnostic test? CT abdomen, abdominal ultrasound, abdominal X-ray, or stool occult blood? Correct answer is abdominal ultrasound. Abdominal ultrasound is the study of choice for cases with suspected intussusception. Keywords for intussusception: toddler with history of vomiting and diarrhea, and lethargy. Lethargy is a keyword for toddlers with intussusception. Each question is followed by explanation and board pearls. Explanation of this case: this presentation is classic for intussusception, which often presents with intermittent abdominal pain, vomiting, episodes of lethargy, which is maybe the predominant symptom in toddlers. Very important not to miss it. Normal exam and labs early in the course. An ileocolic ultrasound or abdominal ultrasound is the diagnostic test of a choice and will show the classic target sign or donut sign. Board pearls: unexplained lethargy plus vomiting in toddler, very important to rule out intussusception. A 3-year-old toddler is brought to the emergency department for evaluation of burns on both legs. The caregiver reports the child accidentally spilled hot water. On examination, there are bilateral scald burns extending from the feet up the lower legs in asymmetric stocking distributed symmetrically, with sharp lines of demarcation and uniform depth. There are no splash marks. What is the next best step? Wound care only, discharge home, evaluate for child abuse, or start antibiotics? The correct answer is to evaluate for child abuse. This is non-accidental burn. Why? Because it's bilateral, it's symmetric, and stocking distribution with sharp lines of demarcation. Explanation of the correct answer: the burn pattern is highly concerning for forced emergent injury, a form of non-accidental trauma or child abuse. Red flags for a non-accidental burns: stocking or glove distribution, sharp lines of demarcation, symmetric involvement, absence of splash marks, uniform depth. Accidental scald burns typically have irregular borders and splash patterns. The appropriate next step is immediate evaluation for child abuse, including multidisciplinary assessment and mandatory reporting according to local regulations. Board burns, stocking, and glove burns: think about intentional injury or non-accidental burns. A 6-year-old boy is brought to the clinic because of multiple daily episodes of brief stirring spills. During these episodes, he suddenly stops his activity and appears unresponsive for several seconds and has subtle eye fluttering. The episodes resolve spontaneously, and the child immediately returns to normal activity without confusion. An EEG demonstrates generalized 3 Hz spike and wave discharges. What is the most likely diagnosis? Absence seizure, myoclonic epilepsy, focal epilepsy, or atonic seizures? The correct answer is absence seizure. The keywords here: young child with brief stirring spills, appears unresponsive for several seconds and may have subtle eye fluttering, and most important, without postictal, no confusion, absent seizure. Explanation of the correct answer: absent seizures, formerly called petit mal seizures, typically occur in school-aged children between 4 and 10 years. Classic features include brief behavioral arrest, staring, unresponsiveness for 5 to 10 seconds, eye fluttering or subtle automatism, abrupt onset and termination, no post-ictal confusion like other cases of epilepsy, multiple episodes per day. The hallmark EEG finding is generalized 3 Hz spike and wave discharge, which is highly characteristic of childhood absence epilepsy. Board pairs, classic triad for absence seizure, school-age child, brief stirring spells, 3 Hz spike and wave pattern on EEG. First-line treatment, ethosuximide. This is the most specific for absence seizure, but also you can use alternatives like valproic acid or lamotrigine. A 19-month-old girl is brought to the clinic because of developmental regression. The parents reported that she previously used several words but has lost her language skills. They also noticed repetitive hand-wringing movements and loss of purposeful hand use. On examination, she has acquired microcephaly. Genetic testing identifies mutation in MECP2 gene. What is the most likely diagnosis? Rett syndrome, Angelman syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, or Fragile X syndrome? Correct answer is Rett syndrome. The key words girl. This disease cannot present in boys and incompatible with life. And developmental regression, loss of language skills, repetitive hand movement or ringing movement, acquired microcephaly, and of course the diagnosis will be confirmed with genetic mutation in MECP2 gene, Rett syndrome. Explanation of the correct answer: Rett syndrome is a neurodevelopmental disorder caused by mutations in the MECP2 gene located on the X chromosome. It is primarily affect girls, not in boys. Children with Rett syndrome typically develop normally during the first 6 to 18 months, followed by developmental regression. Classic features include loss of language skills, loss of purposeful hand use, repetitive hand wringing movements, acquired microcephaly, motor and cognitive impairment. The pearls, classic Rett syndrome findings: girls, normal early development, regression after 6 to 18 months, hand wringing stereotypes, loss of purposeful hand use, and positive mutation in MECP2 gene. Full-term newborn develops a profound central cyanosis within the first hour of life. The infant is tachypnic but has minimal respiratory distress. Pulse oximetry shows oxygen saturation of 60% that does not significantly improve with 100% oxygen. Cardiac examination reveals a single loud second heart sound without a significant murmur. Chest X-ray shows narrow mediastinum, egg on a string appearance. Transposition of great vessels is suspected. What is the next best step in the management? Immediate surgical repair, diuretics, oxygen therapy only, or IV alprostadil, prostaglandin E1 immediately? Correct answer is D, IV alprostadil, prostaglandin E1 immediately to keep the ductus open. Explanation of the correct answer: transposition of the great arteries is a critical congenital heart defect. The aorta will arise from the right ventricle and pulmonary artery arises from the left ventricle. This creates two parallel circulations, preventing oxygenated blood from reaching the systemic circulation. Survival depends on mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood through PDA. That's why we have to give the prostaglandin to keep it open, or ASD or VSD. The most urgent step is administration of IV prostaglandin E to maintain the ductus open, allowing mixing of blood and improving oxygenation. Definitive treatment is arterial switch surgery, but this is performed after stabilization. Repairs: severe neonatal cyanosis plus egg on a string on a chest X-ray. This is a case of transposition of great arteries. The best next step is to start prostaglandin E immediately. 3-year-old child with a known history of tetralogy fellow suddenly becomes extremely irritable while crying. The child develops a progressive cyanosis, tachypnea, and increased fussiness. Oxygen saturation drops despite supplemental oxygen. The child appears anxious, and increasingly hypoxic. What is the most appropriate immediate intervention? Intubation and mechanical ventilation, IV furosemide, place the child in a knee chest position, administer prostaglandin E1. The correct answer is to place the child in the knee chest position to increase systemic vascular resistance. This is a case of TT spill in a child with tetralogy of Fallot. Explanation of the correct answer. This presentation describes a hypercyanotic spill or TT spill caused by increased right to left shunting. This child is experiencing a hypercyanotic spill, a known complication of tetralogy of Fallot. These episodes occur when there is a sudden increased right to left shunting across the VSD or ventricular septal defect, leading to severe hypoxemia. TT spills are often triggered by crying, feeding, defecation, or agitation. The first immediate intervention is placing the child in the knee chest position. This position will increase systemic vascular resistance, reduces right to left shunting, improves pulmonary blood flow and oxygenation. Additional treatments may include calming the child, supplemental oxygen, morphine, IV fluids, beta blockers such as propranolol. For the pearls, tetralogy Fallot plus sudden cyanosis during crying. This means a TT spill or hypercyanotic spill. The best next step is knee chest position first. A 5-year-old child was recently hospitalized for Kawasaki disease and received IVIG as part of treatment. The child now presents to the clinic for routine immunization, including MMR and varicella vaccines. The pediatrician reviews the immunization schedule and considers the effect of recent IVIG therapy on the effectiveness of live vaccines. What should be done regarding MMR and varicella vaccination? Delay vaccination for 11 months, delay 4 weeks, administer both today, or permanently contraindicated? The answer is A, delay vaccination for 11 months. Explanation of the correct answer. IVIG contains passive antibodies that interfere with the immune response to live vaccines. Therefore, MMR and varicella should be delayed for 11 months after IVIG administration. Board pearls delay live vaccines for 11 months if IVIG is used for treatment of Kawasaki, or for 10 months if it is used for ITP or immune thrombocytopenic purpura. A toddler is brought to the clinic for a routine child visit. The parents report that the child says about 18 words, throws a ball overhand, builds a tower of 4 blocks, uses a spoon to feed independently, and can identify 3 body parts when asked. Based on these developmental milestones, what is the most likely age of this child? 12 months, 18 months, 14 months, or 15 months? The correct answer is 18 months. Explanation of the correct answer. Typical 18 months developmental milestones include, for the language, 10 to 25 words, points to body parts, gross motor, throws a ball, fine motor, builds a 3 to 4 block tower, uses a spoon, social and cognitive, increasing independence, imitates household activities. Board pearls. Rapid language acquisition occurs between 15 and 24 months. Comparison. 12 months old will be able to use 1 to 3 words, able to stand or take few steps. 15 months, able to use 3 to 5 words, and able to build a 2 to 3 block tower. 18 months, able to use 10 to 25 words, able to build 3 to 4 block tower, and uses a spoon. End of this presentation. The live pediatric course will start on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. New York time, April 5th. Register your name now. Check the live course schedule in the links below. Pass the pediatric board with confidence.
We are excited to introduce all renewed live pediatric board review courses with Dr. Osama Naga. Join us for an engaging, high-yield learning experience designed to elevate your board preparation. Learn directly from an expert in pediatrics and get the clarity, confidence, and guidance you need to succeed. Don't miss this powerful opportunity. Your pediatric board success starts here. Our 6-month live course takes place every Sunday beginning in April, giving you more flexibility, more study time, and a steady flow of high-yield information each week. Stay on track, stay motivated, and build your knowledge all the way up to your board exam with a schedule designed for your success. Live pediatric board review lectures will be delivered via Zoom. Attend the live courses via Zoom from anywhere in the world with internet access. Course wraps up with a powerful final revision by the end of September. You'll have the opportunity to review and master all pediatric board subjects in just 10 focused, consecutive days right from the comfort of your home. It's the perfect preparation to step confidently into your October board exam. Join the hundreds of doctors who have succeeded with us. Our YouTube lectures, new online courses, and comprehensive pediatric board review book have already helped hundreds of physicians pass their board exam. Now it's your turn. Let's achieve your success together. Click on the link below the video and learn more. Register your name now and we will contact you right before the course starts. Good luck in your exam.